Today, I want to talk about self-awareness and really what that means for yourself, for your success, and how you can model your actions according to this. So, it's getting way darker. As the winter goes on, it's going to be dark at 4:30 p.m. where I'm from, which, I'll be recording this in pitch black. It's actually 7 right now, though. I had to stay late, but regardless. So what does this mean, right? And people talk about self-awareness, right? You hear self-awareness, blah, blah, blah. It's normally with connotations of, that, I'm not going to swear, but the bull crap, liberal movement. Oh, self-awareness, be self-aware. Oh, love yourself, love your body. Now, obviously, that is positive, but just the way that people not fabricated, but the way that people go through with it nowadays is utterly ridiculous because people feed the emotions of your mind. Now, at the end of the day, the emotions of your mind are good, I can't say what is right or wrong because at the end of the day, my worldview is different than someone else's. But I like everything on logic and efficiency, and that is not logic. That is not logical nor efficient to make decisions based on your emotion, and furthermore to feed into that as the main source of, end goal for that. But enough rambling. I don't even know if people understood that really, and I'm not saying this, I'm not talking like this to sound smart, but I truly believe that with as much literature as I'm reading, my vocabulary is expanding, which is another thing, right? For you guys too. Reading is so beneficial for you. And don't just take it from me. Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, both asked if they could have one superpower. What would it be? They both said it would be the ability to read faster, right? Don't take it from me. Take it from two of the richest men in the world, two of the most distinguished men in modern history. Like our history, I guess. Well, not history. Our modern time, I should say. But yeah, read. Anyways, I gotta be more simple in my words so that it comes across better. But anyways, what is real self-awareness? And when I say real self-awareness, I'm talking from a standpoint of efficiency. So what is efficient self-awareness? What efficient self-awareness is? And I can give you guys so many examples of this. But for instance, I want you guys, right, for you yourself to see this. Whenever you feel like saying something, whenever you feel an emotion, and this is going to be very hard to initially have a second nature, right? Because this isn't something that we naturally do. This goes against, what we are as people, right? Our human nature. We are, embedded in our emotions. Now, to get the most efficiency out of something, you cannot rely on your emotions, right? You have to rely on logic, why something's happening, why, what you're feeling and why, and how you can change or tweak it accordingly to give you the most success possible, right? So, for example, right, let's say that you're typically, right, you can take jokes. I know, I work in the blue collar industry, man. If you can't take jokes, you are in for a tough ride. But let's say that you typically can take jokes, and then someone says something specific that just sets you off. Now, you didn't necessarily, right? Like, let's say maybe you weren't having a bad day. Like, it was just a normal day. Everything was going normal. Someone said something specific, and it just set you off to the point where you just exploded, right? Now, in those situations, I want to ask you a question before I get into this. Do you think it's better for you yourself to have explosive outbursts of emotions when certain things happen that you really have no control over? Or when you feel something of that nature, you are able to know why, and furthermore, you're able to control your emotions so that you can have a more acceptable response? The answer, if you guys value efficiency, right, and logic, again, I think everyone should view life from a logical standpoint, but who am I to say anything, right? Who is my what is my perspective in the grand scheme of things? But the answer, right, would be for you to know, just control yourself, right? Control those emotions. Now, that comes only at the other side of self-awareness. For example, I don't know, let's say something says something about your auntie, right? Makes fun of your auntie. Maybe you as a kid, something happened with your auntie, right? Maybe your auntie was so close to you, she's the only one who was, loving to you as a kid. I don't know, right? Just some examples. But as soon as someone says something about your auntie, you lose it. And from their standpoint, right? And we as people, we are selfish. There's a book that I'm currently reading, right? It's not Peter Drucker. It's on the tip of my tongue. But The Selfish Gene, I forget his name, but that's beside the point. How do friends influence people? But we as humans, right? We're selfish for each other. We only care about ourselves. There's a quote. We care more about the scar on our leg. I actually have a scar on my leg as I'm saying this, which is funny. We care more about the scar on our leg than a famine in China that is killing millions of people. And that is true. Like, you guys can hear that. And this is another thing too. When I say these comments, these may seem so offhanded and these may seem like, oh, there's no way. But I want you to honestly consider this. And truly, I think this is right. Not just because I think this is right, but, Dale Carnegie, one of the best, thinkers of our modern time. Warren Buffett, he said that the most influential thing he had ever consumed, and this guy reads, so many books, all of this. He said that Dale Carnegie's course on how to win friends and influence people was the most influential thing he has ever consumed. Now, when Dale says this, I think it's true, and I think that you guys should hold it as well. But going back to my point, if you hear a comment like this, it's specifically not meant to be shocking, but it is shocking, truly, right? Like, there's taking at face value on what, us as a modern society, right? Us as a first world culture holds dear, that goes against everything. But if you can suppress your emotions, truly consider, right, what is being said, the ideas that are said, maybe there's some truth to it. Another thing, and I talk about this, actually I don't think I made a video specifically on it, but the prehistoric mind, right? People, and this was like a survival mechanism, see things in black and white. Because back in the day, right, let's say, oh, I want to eat this berry. If you're right, you're right. But if you're wrong, right, it's death. So you approach things at these black and white issues. But now in the modern world, with so many ideas, so many opinions, so many vehicles to consume and share are different. Everything, right? Food, everything. We live in one of the best times ever. We live in the best time history has ever had. Now, things are more gray, right? Like, if you're wrong, it's not going to mean death, right? If you're wrong, it might still be a crappy situation, but it's not going to mean death, which in our ancestors, it would have. So, I go on tangents. I say this so many times. Again, if you guys aren't new, trying to build a positive personal brand, documenting every single day, concepts, ideas, stuff that's happened to me that I'm learning, I want to share with you guys, right? If you guys are entrepreneurs, learn from my mistakes, learn from what I've employed that's working for me, and hopefully it'll help you curve your success quicker. But going back to that awareness, you have to be aware of yourself, and you have to be aware to know that, what you're consuming, what you're listening to, there may be truth in. You have to suppress your emotions. You have to be aware of those emotions and where they're coming from, and analyze them. That's the word I'm looking for. Analyze them. Now, I see this all the time in my work. Like, people do certain stuff, they say certain things that I know immediately why they're saying it, and this isn't to flex my whatever you want to call it, intelligence. But when somebody says something like they're complaining, right, or somebody, says something like, yeah, blah, 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 I know why they're saying it. And I don't know why they're saying it as in, like, I know their life or whatever. Like, I understand the psychological aspects behind it, right? Psychology is such an important skill in life. You need to know psychology. You need to know how you work, and specifically, how your mind works. So it's in you yourself. I'll go back to you yourself for, you yourself to get value out of this. But analyze yourself with a thin tooth comb. Because if you can do that and you can understand yourself, which at the end of the day, you do understand yourself better than anyone else. If you can understand yourself, right? Understand what motivates you. Understand what upsets you. Understand your weak spots. Understand your strong suits. And act accordingly to each one of them. You're going to have success on a bigger scale, and you're going to have success on a faster scale. I talk about success, but what my success looks like and what yours look like is very much different, but the universal aspects behind this are the same. And what I'm saying isn't some foreign ideas. This is common knowledge, just maybe expressed and packaged in different ways. But one thing, and this is so crucial for me, I've learned so much about habits. I've learned so much about, why we think what we think, why we do what we do. One example, right, is scrolling. If you guys don't know why you're addicted to scrolling, right, it's not just, we're base to basis, but search it up, right? It's the psychology. You're getting as much dopamine. It's novelty. Novelty is, one of the highest triggers of dopamine. We're getting stuff that we find interesting. At the end of the day, what we find interesting, we are going to love. If one trick, by the way, right? If someone's interested in something and you're having a conversation, you don't know what to say, talk to them about their interest. They're going to talk for hours and hours. I don't know who said the quote, but it's like, if you talk to a man about himself, he will talk for hours. And that's true. I think it was like Abraham Lincoln, one of the great presidents. Well, all U.S. presidents at the start of U.S. history were very influential. Some more than others, but anyways, going back to scrolling, I think is where we were. But novelty, what you're interested in, and that social aspect too, right? Like, we as humans grew up in tribes. We did this, right? We found more protection, we found more security with bigger number of people, right? You against a saber-toothed tiger back in, back in the prehistoric days, you would lose. Now, you against 10 people, I don't know if you'd win, but guess what? You have 10 times better chances. So that's what that stems down to. David Buss, Evolutionary Psychology, The New Science of the Mind. I've read that entire book. It's a textbook, 350 pages, one of the best textbooks you can read to understand exactly what I'm saying. So if any of you question me, if any of you say, you don't know what you're talking about, rain check. Take a rain check. Charlie Kirk, I heard him say he reads one book, a book every 3 days. He reads like 100 to 120 books every year. He said, if you're going to argue with him to get on his level, you have to read that. Now, I don't read anything near to that, and I'm not comparing myself to Charlie Kirk. He's probably going to be, he's an extremely, extremely influential man. One thing too, right? If you disregard what I'm saying because I'm talking about Charlie Kirk and you don't like him, give your head a shake. Become aware of why, and become aware of the stupidity of what you're doing, right? Like, at the end of the day, and this is again one of those very, not necessarily shocking, but not out there, but it's not fit into the perspective of soy boy. Everyone's feelings are accounted for, in today's society. But you look at Hitler, inherently bad. Like, I do not like Hitler to like Hitler. And this is, my social teacher taught me this too. He's like, if you're ever going to do an essay on Hitler where you're supporting him, though, almost the only thing you can do is his economic policies. Now, if you look at that, right, Hitler, in 99% of himself, was, an egregious human being. If you supported Hitler, right, you have to give your head a shake. And even with anti-Semitism online, You know, I find it funny because it's just the blind, you know, I really shouldn't find it funny, but like the blind hatred, the blind, that's a different topic. But anyways, I could say to you, not everything Hitler did was bad. Now, if you're an idiot, and I don't want to talk to you, right, if you're like this, but if you're an idiot and you rule with emotion, you're going to say, how could you say that? You're a terrible human being, you're a bigot, you're a misogynist, you're a white supremacist, blah, 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 all this stupid crap. Now, if I said to you, right, everything Hitler did, I think was bad except for his economic policies, right? Made Germany very rich, right? Fascism. If you guys don't know what fascism is, give your head a shake. Learn some stuff that's important. Not if Charlie D'Amelio and LeBron James got engaged. Like, holy cow. But this, I'm going off topic, you know. I find myself very, what's the word? When I find something very important to me, I talk very, you know, highly of something. I can talk very easily of something. Oh man, this is gonna kill me. I don't know the word, but I'm going way off topic. I'm gonna make a video on this. But you yourself, right? Know yourself. Know your motivations. Know what makes you, right? Friction for me and my habits. I find myself, if I'm doing bad habits, I analyze my situation, right? David Goggins talks about this. It's like a post-action report, something like that. They use it in the military. But if you do something, right, whether good or bad, you analyze your situation and you find the good or the bad triggers and you act accordingly to them. Now for habits, right, for me, myself, I find what goes good, what goes bad, and I just eliminate or essentiate those triggers that make me do those actions. Now for motivations, this one is huge for motivations. For everyone, we have different motivations, right? Sigmund Freud talks about it, right? Like beauty of the world. That is a motivation for people. Sex drive is a motivation for people. This is what makes us innately human, right? To reproduce. That is the cornerstone of all species. Food, power, right? In my marketing books, everything I learned about marketing, psychology, it all stems from status. Now, I do believe that. At the end of the day, who am I to discredit great thinkers? I know nothing. If I seem tall, it's because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, which at the end of the day, I don't know if what I'm saying is complete and utter rubbish. I've said this multiple times before. I do truly think what I'm saying has at least a twinge of wisdom to it, not because it's me, myself, but because I'm learning from the greatest thinkers of all time. But motivations, right? I know for me, and you know, this is going to be out there, but I love attention. Innately, right? As I was a kid, I've loved attention. For me, respect and being respected among people, where people notice what I'm doing, right, is a very strong motivator for myself. Now, for you, maybe you hate people, and your ultimate goal, I know many people like this, your ultimate goal is to live in a cabin in Alaska, off the grid, away from civilization. Now, if you know yourself for that, right, it's easier for you to take certain actions to get towards that, right? Like for me, and let's say my motivation with people. Let's say I don't want to do something, but on my wallpaper, right, I have an image depicting my desires. That's just one way to think about it. That's just one way to do it, right? There's so many ways to look at this. That's just one way. Let's say you are making a story like I am right now, making a video, right? Let's say, oh, maybe I don't want to say this, but if you think, I'm sharing my journey, I want to leave an impact on people. I know that everyone is infallible. You have to share your flaws. That's what makes you human. Then maybe I would persuade myself to say that. But this is such a huge topic. But the biggest thing is just be self-aware. You know, I didn't even touch on what I wanted to touch on in this video. You know what? I'm actually going to write down the 2 things I talked about and go more into depth. I don't even know what I'm going to name this video. But again, at the end of the day, it's just ideas that are helping me with success. So, but yeah, I'm almost home. I have like 21-minute commute from work, 21, 22. And in that time, you know, I want to utilize it for something. I'm not listening to music right now, dopamine detox. What better time than to talk to my camera? So, with that, I'm going to end this here. I don't know what the exact lesson of this video was, but I hope you guys gained value, whatever it was. If you guys want to follow my journey, again, I'm trying to build a positive personal brand, post every day, concept ideas, blah, 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 all of that, to help you become the best version possible. Make sure to subscribe, follow wherever you're consuming this on. Stay for my journey. You know, I hope to see you guys in the next video. Follow me on Instagram. I post daily updates on my AI agency, run an AI agency, have an free AI agency Discord server. It'll be in the link in the description. You guys can join that. Pure value, by the way. I'm the anti-guru. It's what I want to brand myself around. It's what I find is important to me. Becoming the anti-guru, what everyone else isn't. Not reinventing the wheel, but at the same time reinventing the crappy parts of the wheel. Reinventing the wheel. Another huge topic of discussion. But yeah, that is all. I'm home right now. So thank you guys for watching. Hope to see you in the next video. And above all, stay wise.